Hello and welcome to another episode of Book Journey Mentor Uncut. Thank you so much for coming in and joining. My name is Daniela Blechner, author, book journey mentor, founder of a company called Conscious Dreams Publishing. We work with authors from all over the world to help them to get their powerful messages and stories out there on a global scale. So what is this show about? This is a show that interviews up and coming, established and new authors. Give them an opportunity to share their story. We're always looking for manuscripts that educate, inspire, and empower. And our guest today most definitely does have that. So who are we speaking to today? Thank you for coming on. If you're coming into the broadcast, please just tap the screen and say hello. Let us know where you're watching from and feel free to invite some followers. So I'm interviewing the amazing Dilys Sillah, who is a transformational life coach, TEDx speaker, founder of Who Will Hear My Cry, and two-time author. And to me, more than that, someone that I call a very dear friend. So I met Dilys a couple of years ago, and the book that we were actually speaking about, I think it was about 2 years ago, was something very different.
Longer than 2 years ago, actually.
About 3 years ago, two or 3 years ago, wasn't it? It was a very different book that we were talking about publishing as your second book. Neither of us would have ever thought that her book would be Not This Widow. So just to set a bit of context, this book was written and published in 6 months by Dilys. She lost her dear husband, Eddie, January 2019. And we published this book in honor of his memory on the day of his anniversary. So Dilys, how are you? First of all, we've got to address the fact that we're in lockdown and that you are not in your home country.
I'm not in lockdown, you are.
Fine.
They lifted ours.
Dilys is actually in Ghana at the moment. So just give us a bit of context. Why are you in Ghana? What were you doing in Ghana? And how are you finding your not lockdown situation?
Okay, so I came to Ghana really to launch the book. So I did the book launch in London, which was really successful, a great turnout. And I decided that I wanted to come to Ghana and launch the book here. And I had a couple of interviews scheduled in Nigeria. So flew to Ghana on the 5th of March, went to Nigeria on the 7th, came back on the 13th, I had quite a number of TV and radio stuff lined up for the 28th of March for the book launch. Yep. On the 22nd, lockdown, close the borders, everything. So borders are still closed, and this is why I am still stuck in Ghana. However, what I did do was rather than sit here and think, oh, everything's all messed up, I did a pre-launch for the book online on that day. So yeah, it just worked out anyway.
But being adaptable, isn't it? I think you've done that really well. You had such really great engagement there. So tell us a little bit about you, Dilys, and why you wrote this book, Not This Widow.
I think the important thing to mention is that I had never intended on writing a book. You know, I'd lost my husband. I was going through whatever it was that I was going through. And the issues that it threw up for me, i.e. things that I never thought would be possible when somebody's grieving. You just kind of take it for granted that if somebody passes away, everybody is sad. And their focal point of that sadness is to grieve. You don't ever believe that anyone would have the emotional or mental capacity to be nasty in any way. Well, I found out pretty quickly that unfortunately, some people like that do exist. And I just felt, why hasn't anyone said anything? If this is something that's common, and I found as I was speaking to people that they would be like, oh, yes, that's what happens. And then people started to share their own stories, not just within my community, because within the community, there were certain specific things that would be quite characteristic of people that had been bereaved, but just generally people's inability to prioritize the person or the people grieving and have their own agenda and their own very weird priorities, like, inheritance and who's going to get what. And you're thinking, somebody's just died here. How come that's not your focus? And I think that was the reason why I said somebody has to write about this, and we need to be more, grief aware. so we can support people that are grieving. So that was my reason.
Thank you. And that's one of the important things to note in terms of this book, is that it does document your beautiful relationship. And I've never met Eddie, but I really feel like I know him through your book, and I always know how highly you've spoken and speak of him, you know, over the 17 years that you were married together. So not only does it have Dilys's personal story in there, but you actually give voice to 4 other women to share their stories and touch on how culture, customs and traditions have really presented challenges and further oppressed the person grieving. So I think that just in terms of grief awareness really does put that message across. So before we sort of delve into the book and then some of the themes that you present within your book, can you tell us a little bit about Eddie, how you met?
So I was contracting within the local authorities, and I wasn't actually. I was a permanent member of staff at one of the councils, and I'd really just had enough. But at the same time, back in the day, I used to be a singer. So I wanted that flexibility of being able to just travel when I wanted and not have the restrictions of, you know, you've got 28 days annual leave kind of thing, which just wouldn't have worked for me. So I threw in my resignation, rejecting the job, started contracting. And my first contract, having turned down quite a number of contracts, I mean, those days you could turn down contracts, now you can't find them. I met Eddie on the first contract that I had. And interestingly, the first day he met me, he told his friends that I'm going to marry her. And they just laughed. But of course, he did. So yeah, that's how we met.
Lovely. Thank you. I'm just double checking that, because I can't see if you are commenting and you're watching, we're not ignoring you, it's just that we can't see the messages at the moment. So I am working to make sure that I can see it on my other device. So yes, we will definitely get back. We'll get back to all comments anyway. So tell us about the process of writing this, because this is something that, you know, sometimes when you're writing something that's so raw, and I remember how raw it was, people take years to really sit with that and get to the point where they feel they're ready. What was it within you? One thing I would say about you is you're like one of the most formidable, determined people that I know. What was it that gave you that ability to be able to write that book, and how hard was that process?
The process was awful. It was very taxing emotionally and mentally. I mean, it made me ill. I did actually kind of break out. My skin broke out.
Yeah.
I was having stomach cramps. I was very ill. I don't think I counted the cost of writing the book. I was just initially driven by somebody needs to say something, and I want to write this book in honor of my husband, and I want it published on the anniversary of his passing, which was, you know, 21st of January, 2020. I didn't process what that actually meant. So I was fine in the beginning, you know, writing about how me and Eddie met and blah, 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 blah. But when it got to the point of documenting when the journey began, that's when I found it extremely difficult. So there were times where I would be typing and my body was very tense and all hunched up. And I wouldn't realize that that's what my body was doing. And then, you know, I kind of relax. And, you know, I realized then that there was a bit of a problem there. But I didn't count the actual cost of the decision that I had made. So you remember there was a point where I was like, you know, is this going to come out? And you were saying, you know, don't make yourself ill. And I'm like, no, I have to do it, because my whole thing was, if I'm not going to have this book published on the 21st of January, then it loses something for me.
Yeah.
Because this was for him.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the dog, because you can hear blending. Frisky. Shh. That's the dog's name.
Trying to get attention, Dilys, that's what it is.
Yeah, he wants to be part of the interview. So yes, he, you know, it was just, sorry, he's come back under my feet now. It was just that focus that I just had to do it. You know, hell or high water. I knew how I would feel if that date passed and I wasn't able to deliver. And what it did for me, having that book published on that day and the success of it, it gave me a different memory. It created a new memory for me. It wasn't, I'm going to put the dog away. It wasn't just, it wasn't just, you know, this is the anniversary and me looking back and it being, how can I put it, just a horrible memory.
Yeah.
But I have something that makes it slightly more bearable, that now when the 21st of January 2022 comes along, it won't just be this was the day that, you know, my husband passed away. You know.
And I remember speaking to you in the morning, and you said that it's just given this day a new meaning to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important as well. And that really definitely shone through. So let's talk about the process. I know Maureen commented here. I'm trying to get it up so I can see it. You said something about culture and customs and beliefs. I will get back to that once I manage to work out how to get it to show. So the process of writing it was very. Everyone's got their own unique, different way of doing things. But you actually spoke yours into the phone, didn't you? Tell us a bit about your process.
No, I did. I tried to do that because I thought that would be quicker, and then the bloody thing was not, you know, putting down exactly what I was saying. I just thought, forget it, because I type really fast. I'm like 70 words a minute. So I thought, let me just do that. But the way I write is I'm very clear in the story that I want to tell. So I start off by writing my chapters.
Yeah.
So I have that flow for me. And once I have the chapters written down, it just flows. And I don't know why I'm able to write books so quickly, because I wrote Predator Prince within about 6 weeks or so. And obviously this one I wrote, if not for the breaks, I probably would have, you know, done it a lot quicker than I did. So that's the method that I use. I just have my chapters. And yeah, in fact, I wrote the last paragraph of the book before I started anything, which was quite odd. But I think I know where I wanted to be mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wrote that and just put that down.
Makes sense. So you know the outcome. It always makes it seem more tangible to get there. So tell us a little bit about why you chose to include the stories of other women, because I think that's a really important part of your book.
I think it's going to be a theme with my books anyway, because Predator Prince was the same kind of style. And I didn't want to, not that I didn't want to deviate away from that, but I think writing this book has made me, you know, certain that when I get any books in the future, that's how I'm going to write them. But I felt that it was important that people didn't deceive themselves into thinking my experience was unique to me. So the ladies in the book, three of us are African. One lady is a white American who was married to a Filipino. Yeah. And though I speak about the cultural challenges that I faced as a widow within this community, as you rightly mentioned, the book is not just about widowhood. It's about how we treat people who are grieving and the lack of support and sensitivity that's, you know, afforded them. So hearing from this lady that, is, white American and sharing a very similar story, I thought was important for her to be heard. And then the other thing that I also thought was very important was to hear from, so it's the story of three widows and one story of a child of a widow. So, you have an account of a child's perspective of what it's like to lose your father and to see your mother being treated in a particular way, the impact that not only does it have on them as a child, but how it has such a negative impact on them moving forward as an adult and how they show up in their own marriage. So I felt it was important to give a very rounded account of what grief looks like.
Thank you. And that's one thing I really love about you, is the fact that you do give voice to other people. Your story, our stories all intertwine and mix in some sort of way. And what it did for me is it opened my eyes, because there's so many things that I hadn't heard of, that I wasn't aware of in terms of culturally. This week is National, I think it's Death Awareness Week, which we'll speak about. But I'd really like to know, or for you to share with people, some of those challenges that people found that stopped, like literally stopped them from being able to grieve in the way that they need to?
I think one of the most common ones is people just deserting the person who's been bereaved. You know, people at a time where it should be all about them because they're going through something that is absolutely horrendous and life-changing. But, you know, you've got people saying, oh, well, I don't want to cry so much because my friends aren't going to come around, or I'm pretending that I'm okay. I'm putting a brave face in it. You shouldn't have to do any of those things. And that's why I speak about being able to grieve authentically. You should be able to grieve however you so wish, without judgment, without someone saying to you, well, you know, your husband has been, you know, gone for the last 3 years. You should be over it by now. You should have moved on. What the hell? How do you move on? You hopefully will move forward. But there is never going to be a day that you wake up and think, oh, actually, I don't miss this person anymore. I don't mind that they're not here. It's never going to happen. So it's important that we speak the truth about grief. Don't tell us that time heals, because that's not true. What time does is it teaches you how to cope, hopefully teaches you how to cope better. Time gives you more experience of dealing with the grief and the fact that you have lost this person, how your whole life changes. I speak to, you know, a lot of my single friends, and I would say, you know, thank God I'm not single, because it's like a meat market out there. I'd hate to be single at this time. Here I am single. So it's a whole life-changing thing. And how quickly people move forward, only they know, and only they should be the ones, you know, to determine that. So I think it's important that we are supportive and non-judgmental, and don't make it about you. You shouldn't feel that just because you don't know what to say, that you don't go and visit that person and comfort them. We know you don't know what to say. There is nothing that you could say that would make any difference. Sometimes it's okay to say nothing.
I remember saying that, and I posted about this today, and also when I had my interview with Maria, who also wrote a book about becoming a young widow, that people react in very different ways when it comes to death. It's almost as if some people completely avoid you, waiting for you to get back to how they know you to be, because it's out of character for you to be vulnerable and to be grieving. Some people try and distract you from talking about it. Other people, like you says it as well. Yes. But one thing that you said at your book launch that I think was very powerful, there was a particular person who came to your house, didn't speak. She just sat there, and it was about presence, about witnessing allowing you to express yourself how you wanted to, witnessing your pain and just being present.
She just held my hand for hours. She didn't say, oh, do you need anything? And I think the other thing that I really, really resented and hate with a passion is being told how I feel. I really hate it. So, for example, you'd get messages like, today must be very difficult for you. Well, actually, no, it wasn't till you said it. Actually, I was coping really well with today till you opened your mouth, you know, and then 10 of you said, today must be very difficult for you. Then it did become difficult. Just ask, how are you feeling today? That's it. And, you know, we're articulate enough to say, it's okay, or it's a bit difficult, you know, and we'll try to be as honest as possible. And if we can't find the right vocabulary, then that's the time where, you know, it's one of those silent periods where you just sit and just be there, you know.
And it's okay to be in that silence, isn't it?
But I think as human beings, we are uncomfortable with silence. We don't like it. Now, I work as a coach, so silence for me is very powerful. Silence means you are able to process it, you know, uninterrupted, and think through whatever it is that is an issue for you. And that's when your light bulb moments are going to come, not when there's dialogue, it's when you are quiet. So quiet for me is fine. I think the other thing that I found very interesting is like people telling me when I'm ready to date again, or when I should date again, or whether it should never happen, or the type of person. I've even had, you know, married people saying that, well, you should just date a married man because obviously you're of a certain age now, you know, you've got children, you don't really want anyone to give you any grief and stress of relationship. So maybe you might want to not want a full-time man. I'm just thinking, I lost my husband, not my mind. You know, it's so patronizing. It's so patronizing.
Yeah. Telling you how you feel and how you should grieve and what you should think. I can read some of the questions here, but I can't read all of them. V says silence is an anagram for listen. Oh, okay. Silent, sorry, is an anagram for listen. Silence is powerful. Maureen says being told how you feel, or oh, they're going too quickly, I can't see them, they keep disappearing. V, I saw your message earlier, but usually I watch it on this device and it's not coming up for some reason. I can see it on the split screen on Facebook, but it's only showing me some, and they're moving so quickly I can't see them. So hopefully, and normally it shows on StreamYard, but it's not coming up for some reason, so bear with me, because I really do like this to be an interactive show where people can comment and question as well. So here we go. I think I've got some of them. We'll get there.
You know, I'm not techie, so I'm rubbish.
You're good, Dilys. Don't worry. You're good. Like, some of the comments are coming up. If people could invite people, that would be amazing, because I'm just not able to do it, and I'd like to get in. Oh, this is a shame. Hopefully it will come up on my phone a bit later on. Not sure what I've done now. Okay, so talking about some of the customs and cultures we were speaking of earlier, I think every country or every all over the world, there's different ways, isn't there? So a very Western way could be, you know, stiff upper lip, don't talk about it, you know, let's not talk about the taboo subject. But there are a lot of things that, you know, in your traditions when you were grieving as a widow, and so very early on, that I know you speak about in the book that you found really difficult to cope with. Could you just share with the audience just a little bit about what some of those things were and how you cope with how you cope with them?
I think one of the things that I really found very difficult is in being Ghanaian. In my culture, when somebody passes away, you have like a sit down kind of ceremony, and people will come, they will greet, and they will come with, you know, a donation or with drinks. The idea being that if people come, they should be watered. And they do sometimes will, you know, will cook food. I mean, my house was just brimming with food and drinks. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I finally got it on my device, so I can see some comments now. Yay! So you're talking about people. You had streams of people coming into your house.
And what typically happens is when anybody comes, they will ask them, "What have you come for?" And the person would say, "I heard something." And I'm just giving you like a literal translation. Like, I heard some news that was very displeasing, so I've come to find out if it's true. Then you're asked, "What did you hear?" "We heard XYZ." Then the response would be, and it's like a spokesperson that's appointed, and he will say, "Yes, what you heard is correct." And having to hear that all day, every day, for hours and hours. It was terrible. It was really, really, really terrible. You know, but obviously Eddie and I weren't from the same country. So Eddie was Sierra Leonean. And typically for Sierra Leoneans, they have wakes. I don't do wakes. I've told my kids, when I die, you better cover that coffin. I don't want anyone to come and stand over me and be laughing, because it'd really piss me off. And I will get up and slap them. But I didn't want that. And Eddie didn't want that, because we spoke about everything. And we'd both agree that we did not want away keeping.
Yeah.
So it was assumed that it would be an open coffin. I was like, that's not happening. You know, so yes, I did kind of put my foot down in certain areas of tradition that I just wasn't prepared to compromise, because it just wasn't what I wanted.
What's the most challenging part of the grieving process? I know it sounds like a odd question because there must be so many, but sometimes it's like you're saying, it's the support that you have around you can sometimes be harder than what's actually happened itself.
I think the most difficult thing about the grieving process is that it's exactly that. It's a process and it never ends. You're never going to get to a place where, that's why when people say things like time heals, time does not heal. It just enables you to cope better. So I didn't sleep till 4 o'clock this morning because I was thinking about Eddie. You know, just something just popped into my head. I think I was listening to some music and it just reminded me of the kind of music he would listen to. Those moments are never going to change.
Yeah.
You know, I could get married tomorrow. It could be 10 years down the line. Those moments are never going to change. You learn to cope with them a bit better, but you never come to a place where you don't feel anymore. That just doesn't happen. And I think that's one of the myths that people find out too late. And that's one of the reasons why people try to hurry up and be better. And it's really a false economy by doing that. It's not going to, you're never going to win this battle by dealing with your grief journey like that. You just won't win.
Thank you. And what was some of them? I know that you touch it in the book, and I know that you've spoken about it on your lives. In terms of the support around you, how important was that during the process in terms of you being able to grieve and process what you needed to process?
I mean, I was very fortunate because I had, you know, those that were standing by me were strong, and they allowed me to be myself, to vent if I wanted to cuss out everybody if I wanted to. And there were moments where, you know, people asked for it and they got it. And no one, well, they did maybe try to stop me, but they weren't the people that were in my inner circle, if that makes sense. They weren't my people. But those that were my people were like, leave her alone. Whatever she has to do to get through today, leave her and let her do it. So the support was great. And it was more important that, sorry, the dog's doing something really weird by the chair.
I really want to know, but tell me after.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Anyway, so we're trying to be serious here, Frisky. So it was helpful that I had those people because what I was going through was mad. This wasn't somebody that I had lost because I had it, like, I didn't have any warning. 1 minute he was there, the next minute he was gone. So I was having to deal with the shock. Now, I'm not necessarily saying it's any easier if you have notice of that person passing away, but there's a shock element that obviously wouldn't have been there had Eddie been terminally ill. So having to deal with the shock was a lot. So having the support there of people that even helped me plan the funeral. I mean, I didn't really do much around the funeral. I just said yes and no. Do you want this? Yes. Do you want this? No. You know, I didn't have to do anything. The funeral director even came to my house to talk me through the whole process, which was really, really helpful for me. But I had amazing support. I really did.
Brilliant. Thank you. I can see some comments here. I don't want to miss them before they go. Maureen says, respect their grieving journey. Also, she says, time doesn't heal. You find ways to cope. Even after losing my beloved brother, Alvin, 12 years ago, I still feel like part of me is missing. We were like twins.
Yeah.
Leah says, when you remember the good without the edge of pain, it's better. Love you lots as well, V. So V says, ask people to state the name before comment if it doesn't work. Oh, okay. Sorry, that's to me. Okay, cool. I can see somebody just gives me a chunk. It doesn't let me see the rest, but we'll get back to every comment as well. And if you have any questions for Dilys, if you're watching, please do throw up those questions. I can see some of them, so please do. And if you've missed something, feel free to comment as well, because this is about engaging and giving you all a platform as well to have a conversation with the amazing Dilys, who's not in lockdown in Ghana.
No, but I am observing social distancing and stuff. So I can count on one hand how many times I've been out in the past, 5 weeks? 4 weeks? Yeah, about 5 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, it looks
I mean, even the girl that came to plait my hair, she had to wear a mask and everything.
Yeah, I can imagine. Must be a different experience. So we were talking about lost my train of thought. I can't multitask.
What were we talking about? Support. We were talking about support.
Yeah, how important support is around you. I want to just kind of look at Death Awareness Week for a bit. What myths would you like to dispel when it comes to death, and how can people better support somebody who is going through the grieving process?
I think it's the fact that time will heal. Don't put a time clause on somebody's grief. Just don't do that. Because what you do is you make them try and rush the process, and it's very, very damaging for their mental health. I think one of the reasons why I didn't do that is because I know myself. And what I didn't want was for this wave to just hit me out of the blue, I don't know, 6 months, a year, 2 years later. And I'm now dealing with what I should have dealt with 6 months, 2 years before. I wanted my life to go forward. At some point, I made the decision, I want to be happy. Yeah. I hate this feeling. It's killing me. And it was killing me. So I think it's about not putting that time clause on people. And for those of us that have lost, a husband, don't tell us that we'll find somebody else. I'm not opposed to that, but it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not appropriate to even have an opinion. You shouldn't even go there. When I'm ready to say this is the person that I'm dating, then that's my choice. And I just think you just have to let people be, allow people to be themselves. Don't ever think that you know what it feels like and make a judgment on anyone who is grieved and say, well, I wouldn't be still sitting. It's been 2 years. How come you're still? You need to go through it to understand.
Yeah.
I think one of the other myths is the fact that, like in my case, you remarry, it means you don't remember the person that you were married to. And there's a lady in the book that has remarried, and she still misses her late husband.
Of course.
It just is what it is. I think the other thing is recognizing that people are sometimes going to pretend that they're okay because they think you're not okay with them not being okay, if that makes sense. So create that space and that environment for that person to feel comfortable. Ask people what they need and just be there for people. Check on them. I think for me, what I found the hardest thing to hear, it wasn't my experience, was the desertion, the manner in which, people are just left to their own devices. They're just, forgotten. It's like once the funeral is done, that's it. And that hurts me a lot. It hurts me a lot when I hear, people say that, and it's too common. Sorry, I'm really having a problem with my neck. So forgive me for.
Go what you need to do.
I don't know if I can, because by now I would have had my massage, but obviously because of all of this, I can't. And it's one of the things.
Massages.
Yeah, you remember when I was writing the book, the tension in my neck. I would always have my massages. I really took care of myself.
Yeah, so important. That was one thing I was going to say. Like, I remember during that process, and you were really beforehand, before you'd made the submission, because you had in your date, you were going to make a submission at this particular time. And I remember you just saying, I can't get it in at this date. And it's like, Dilys, the most important thing is you need to make sure that you take care of yourself through this process. You don't want to get ill over this at all. Take your time. What would you say to somebody who's writing something from a place of, you know, that's really delicate for them, maybe traumatic, what would you say to them in terms of how they should look after themselves?
I think you shouldn't be embarrassed to ask for help. So for me, I actually employed the services of a counsellor when I started writing the book. When I got to a place where I realised that it was making me ill, I quickly got onto a counsellor. And I always try and make this point very clear. When you are going into counselling, all counsellors are not the same. So a lot of people that have had bad experiences with just rubbish, like counselling doesn't work. No, your counsellor didn't work for you. I literally had a list of counsellors. I went through them and I interviewed them, because I'm trusting you with my life right now. The same way as a coach, don't just come to me unless, of course, you're sure that, you know, Dilys is the person I want to work with. Go and speak to other people. They are working for you, not the other way around. So I have in fact, I gave my counsellor credits in the book, you know, so she only found out when she bought it. I didn't tell her. You know, so it's very important that you get that emotional and mental health support, because I'm telling you, it can ruin you and it can really set you back. Because if you think of the kind of book I was writing, I had to, even just doing the proofreading. You remember, I was in Canary Islands at the time, and Gran Canaria, that's it. I was in Gran Canaria at the time, and it was making me ill. The fact that I'm having to go over and read this thing over and over and over again, it was horrible. You know, so having that support is really important to keep your mind and your emotions in check.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much. Thank you. Jermaine says, yes, you have to go through it. You have to go through it to understand grieving. Maureen says it's important to allow those grieving to give themselves permission to go through all stages of their grieving. And Jermaine says people cannot handle your pain.
No, they can't. That's what it is. And that's the thing, that people need to stop thinking that they have to handle it. It's not about you. It's not about you. That's the one time that you should be selfless. This person is going through a devastating, life-changing experience. Leave them be. It's not about, oh, well, I don't know what to say. We have to start getting comfortable about this topic. We are all going to die. That is a fact. Yeah. We're in this situation where you've got this pandemic going on. I can't tell you the number of people that I know have been affected by the coronavirus and who have actually passed away. Whether we like it or not, death is going to happen. So rather than waiting till it happens before we get ourselves educated about how we may respond and how we need to respond to others, we need to start having this conversation and just put on our big girl or big boy pants or G-strings, whatever it is that you wear. So I'm thinking, I don't own a pair of those. But that's what you need to start doing. Because it's going to come knocking at your door and it will not ask permission. Didn't ask permission from me. I went to bed one morning, woke up, and within 30 minutes, my husband was gone.
It's interesting you use the word permission, because when I lost my friend, I actually lost my friend while we were working on your book, publishing your book, and you were just brilliant to speak to. It was such a shock from nowhere, and it was almost that, but you feel robbed. You didn't ask permit. There was no. You just left. There's no permission. There's no warning. There was no preparation. It was just, you know. And I think one thing that you said is it's about preparing. You know, we don't think we know it's gonna come, but we don't like to talk about it. Is there anything that, you know, came up for you that you realized that, you know, is important in terms of, you know, being a wife or being a husband, even having to think about what might happen?
Yes, I think we need to be more open about these conversations so that we can put our house in order, i.e. our financial house in order. You know, these are some of the things that, you know, money divides people like you would not believe when somebody passes away. And it's important to make things crystal clear, you know, what should go where. Because sometimes even with that, there's still challenges, but at least take care of the basics and get life insurance. You know, these are things that, especially within certain communities, we are so superstitious, and again, I mentioned this in the book, that it is challenging having that conversation as a wife. You know, you go and say to your husband, you know, let's talk about this. Hey, you're trying to kill me. No one's mad at me. She wants to kill me. And that's the response that you are going to get. God forbid you have this conversation and your in-laws here and the man dies, she killed her husband. Because I faced that.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that your husband passes away, he couldn't have just died. You must have done some juju or some obia, because no man in Africa just freaking dies. You know, and it's funny because I was speaking to a friend a couple of days ago, and she was actually divorced from her husband for 4 years, and he passed away.
Oh, you kidding?
Family, yes, the family was still trying to say, well, it must be because of you. What kind of nonsense? You know, and I just wasn't prepared to take that foolishness. I just wasn't prepared to do it.
100%, 100%. Those conversations are important. And like I said, one of the things that I love about your book is it just really shines a light on different customs and traditions and real life stories where I think one of the women had experienced that. She was, you know, blamed for the death of her husband.
Yeah.
So Maureen says, I always say the only guarantee in life is death. That is true. Jermaine says, counselling is great, but it's not one size fits all. Having the right important one for your process is important. If anyone has any questions for Dilys, please throw them out, because I have now finally worked out how to read the comments. It's not coming up on the screen for some reason. I've got to look here, but that's fine. So let's crack into the publishing process. What did you find challenging and what was the most rewarding? Tell us a bit about your experience.
I think my experience is a little different because it was so time sensitive. So there was a hell of a lot of pressure on. I think the proofreading bit was tough.
Yeah.
I think the most rewarding was just it being over. So I think for me, yeah, I think for me it's a little different because of what it was about.
Yeah.
It was kind of like having to drink bitter medicine, but you're having to drink it because it's going to make you better. If I was talking about Predator or Prince, then it would be a completely different set of emotions. However, they were shit publishers. Sorry, I can't say that. They were really bad publishers. they were. No, they were just awful. And I did say that it's a shame that I didn't go with you.
I'll let you off.
So that, Well, let's be open and say what happened. So the reason why I didn't go with Danni, and I kick myself to this day, was because at the time I wanted, to those of you that have heard of T.D. Jakes and the Woman Thou Art Loose book, he had actually done a CD that went with the book. And that's what I had wanted to do with Predator or Prince. I was actually going into the studio and doing some very, inspirational songs to go with that, which isn't the service that Danni offers. So what I did was, when I found out, though, that the process would have been very convoluted, by that time that ship had kind of sailed with us. And I was speaking to these new publishers that made it kind of look like but it just went, it was not a great experience.
Bit peaked on.
It wasn't great. But yeah, with you guys, I think it was the support element that made it was a very sensitive book, a very difficult book. But I know that if it had been somebody else, it would have been, we just do it, You never ever said that to me once. If anything, you were the opposite. So I better just plug my phone in. Sorry, guys, you will see me in a minute.
Right. We're live, people. I'm just glad your dog's not going crazy right now.
That's because he sat under my feet and he absolutely loves me. He would not ever leave me alone. So that's why he's quiet, because he heard he heard something going off in the kitchen and thought they were going to come and take him away from me. So
bless him.
Yeah, so that's fine. I'm charging the phone now.
There's a question from Maureen, which we'll get to in a second. So I've seen it, Maureen. You were talking about the process.
Yes. So it's difficult for me to say what was the most rewarding, other than I was just glad it was over. But that's not a reflection on the process if it had been a different kind of book. Do you see what I mean? You know, it had such an effect on my health, and it was just different. Yeah.
And then the day of the book launch came. Yay!
Oh, that I did
How
enjoy.
did that feel?
Amazing. It was amazing for a number of different reasons.
She looked amazing as well.
Oh, thank you. Again, connected to giving me a different memory. I felt that I'd been given a gift in that book, you know, and the turnout was amazing. I think there was over 130 people there.
Yeah.
And that's after quite a few people couldn't make it. You know, the venue was lovely, and yeah, it was great. I absolutely loved it. And Ingrid was amazing.
Ingrid Matthews.
For me, that was the highlight for me. The interview, it was not easy. There were some questions that she asked that I remember seeing my sister's face at one point, and her eyes just opened, and I kind of laughed in my head because she's, you know, quite protective about this whole thing. And yeah, she was good. She really went there. And because we didn't discuss the questions before, which I do prefer that, it was authentic. But I prefer that. You know, there's only one time that I've been grilled about, you know, answering questions before. That's not really my style. I don't think I
always see what you mean. Prefer to have, just some more authentic
conversation
style. Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't think actually I'm going to accept any interviews that they demand that. The thing is, there's only certain questions I'll say, don't ask me this and don't ask me that. But everything else is fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Much better. I prefer that way as well. Otherwise, you feel like you've got to have
contrived.
Yeah. And a certain outcome at the end. But it's like we've had a conversation and it's taken many different turns.
Yes, I prefer that.
So your book launch is amazing. You had a lovely cake. Everyone looked amazing. I've never seen such a room full of well-dressed, beautiful people. It was brilliant. If you weren't there, you missed out. We also created a trailer for you. So you worked with the Lawrence Hope. Tell us a little bit about that experience. We'll put a link to the trailer later on.
So that trailer, that's when I realized that I was a tough bitch. I have never... Well, it's not really a swear word.
She always calling me bitch. Go on.
Do you want me to start exposing you?
No. Let's give it back to the trailer.
Danni and I, our private conversations are very, very naughty. It was so cold. So for those of you that haven't seen the trailer, it was shot in Brighton in January. It was the coldest. Was it January or February? December.
It was December or January.
It was December the 16th.
December, wasn't it? Yeah.
Let me tell you, I didn't know that it was humanly possible to be that cold. I thought I was going to die. Man, I have so much respect for models. I mean, I did modeling, but very, very briefly. I hated it. It was not me at all. But that was something else. So it was shot on the.
Did you have to leave at 6 in the morning or something?
Yes, I had to leave. I sound stressed, don't I? Okay.
It's over now. It's not happening now.
Let me breathe, because I'm kind of like in the moment. I'm just remembering getting dressed and not knowing what I was letting myself in for. And I was wearing this black traditional attire that I had to wear when people came round the house to do the greeting, because you have to dress in black and you know, tie your head and all of that. So I was just wearing this very flimsy outfit. But again, what I loved about that whole process was Lawrence Koch shot that video. But the respect and sensitivity that I was shown, the respect was just out of this world. And everything with you guys was always, when you're ready, at your own pace, you know, we're here to support you. We will make this happen for you. Not, right, you're going to have this book. We think it's going to be great. You know, dollar sign. That was never even close, you know. And then Lawrence came on board, and that same sensitivity. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of either of you, and you know, and the team, and you know, the guys that were editing, and Rhoda as well. It was just amazing, and that's why, you know, I'll be coming
That's so
back.
lovely to hear that feedback. Thank you. Thank you. You've been awesome to work with as well as a client. And I've got to say, if you're watching, I have never met anyone with just that sense of determination, strength, wisdom, and also at the same time blooming hilarious. I learned something new about Dilys the other day. She can do the most amazing accents, but we'll have to come back and do another video on maybe based on your accent. So what is next for Dilys? We haven't mentioned the Ghanaian president yet though, have we?
Oh, the fact that he had my book?
Yes.
So that I was invited to see this president speak somewhere, and I was very, very tired that day, really exhausted. And I kind of found every excuse not to get out of bed and go. I was just tired. And one of my friends that lives in Nottingham, who is part of the political party, the ruling party, but he lives in Nottingham, said that, look, he would come and pick me up. And I thought, well, that's all right then, because I just couldn't be bothered to get on public transport. So he came and picked me up, and something just said to me, take your book, because you never know. So I got a copy of the book, and I actually signed it, and I wrote a message inside the book. And, you know, the president, you know, finishes his little speech, and he says hello to me as he's passing, because I've met him before. So when the president won the election, I flew to Ghana, because I'm connected with the ruling party. And I flew to Ghana for a private dinner with the president, not just me and him, but there was quite a number of people there. And so he obviously remembers me from there. So when he was walking past, he nodded his head to greet me. So of course I was feeling really special. And the room that I went in afterwards was his kind of like holding room after he finished speaking. So a couple of my friends, they actually take care of him when he comes over to England, and they manage his events and stuff. And I said to her, I want to give the book to the president. She said, yeah, fine, no problem. Let me take your phone and I'll take a picture. And that's just how it happened. So he got the book and he looked at me and he says, did you write this? And I think it was probably more the shock of realizing that it was about me and I had been widowed. And I said, yes. And he was like, wow, very good. And we were able to capture that moment. So yes, that was great. That was great.
That's fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you. Before I ask you what's happening next, I don't want to ignore the lovely Maureen, who says, how are you feeling today? Does speaking about the journey of grief help or hinder your healing or coping on a daily basis?
Today I'm fine, other than being very tired, and this pain in my neck has been bugging me for a while. So hence, I mean, I'm a very fidgety person anyway, and this doesn't look great. We keep moving my neck, but I am really struggling. But I feel very good today. It was last night that I was not feeling too great. I am able to speak about my journey now. A lot of healing has taken place because I haven't denied any of the emotions that I felt during the course of this journey. I've not told myself that I was okay when I wasn't. And I have not pretended to anyone. Whatever my needs have been, I have spoken them and I have paid attention to them. So it's allowed me to go through this process maybe a lot quicker than somebody that is having to wear a mask all the time. I just refused to do that. So yes, I can speak about my journey quite easily, I think, now.
Thank you. What's next for Dilys, and how can people connect with you?
What's next for me? Well, I have been very busy. So I came to Ghana to launch my book, and that didn't happen in the way in which I wanted, but I did do the online book launch, which was really successful. And then shortly after that, we were told we were going to be on lockdown. So at that time, actually, we weren't on lockdown. It was a social distancing thing, and we couldn't have gatherings of more than 25 people. So clearly, my book launch, I was expecting about 100 people. So I had to scrap that. So when the lockdown was announced, I thought, well, what can I do to help myself and help other people? And I started this 14-day program called Life, Laughter and Lockdown, which was absolutely amazing. The interaction, the topics, everything was just great. I really enjoyed, doing that. So it was very helpful to me. In fact, I go back and I watch them to encourage myself, because people sometimes have this misconception that when you're this inspirational person, you are up here and people are down there. No, darling, we are here, and sometimes I may be here. So I will go back and I will go and listen to the one I did about, understanding your times and seasons. Powerful. And I listened to it the other day and I'm like, right, I get this. So once that was done, I started this thing called Speak with Dilys that I do on a Sunday on my fan page at 7 p.m. Ghana time. It's 8 p.m. your time. And we talk about different topics. This week, we're going to be talking about divorce and stigma. Why are some women in certain communities stigmatized by the fact that they're divorced? And why do some women not get divorced because of the fear of that stigma and will suffer so many different things in their relationships? So I'm very much concentrating on that side of what I've always wanted to do, which is, have some kind of TV something. And that's what I'm concentrating on now. And, really pushing forward with my coaching, though I can see the way things are going. I won't be coaching for much longer because I just won't have the time. I am on Younger TV because I do these 3-minute videos for them, which helps to, inspire and motivate people during this coronavirus period. I think they are on Sky 186 on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays.
Amazing.
Didn't I tell you?
No, you didn't tell me that. I'm like, huh? I didn't know about Younger TV. I was like, what?
Answer your phone, then you'd know.
Okay. Anything that you're doing with the show on Sunday and Younger TV, feel free to put the links in the comments as well.
Yes,
we'll put a link to the book as well if you haven't got your copy. Yeah. How can people connect with you?
So I'm redoing my website. I have really been quite naughty on that one. However, my name on Facebook is my name in real life. So just connect with me there. Go onto the fan page, subscribe, and have a nose around and, see what videos might be, encouraging or applicable to you. So yeah, you can connect with me on Facebook, on Twitter and on Instagram. And I'm kind of getting more used to Instagram, but you get a lot of interaction with me on Facebook.
Okay, I'm gonna have that was going to be the last question, but I've got one more from Rose. Hello, Rose. She says, evening, what aspect of your personality has grown and is aiding your journey moving forward? Love your presentation. Great question.
No one's ever asked me that before. Aspect of my personality, I think it would be the fact that I do not allow people, let me rephrase it, I do not give people permission to tell me how to live my life. More so now, I'm even owning who I am that bit more. So where people might put me in a box, you are a widow, therefore you can't dress a certain way, or you are a widow, you shouldn't be seen here, you are a widow, you shouldn't date. I actually am not entertaining that from anybody, and my parents are very, very supportive. My mum was like, she calls me the glamorous widow, is what my mum calls me.
I love your mum.
And she always says that she feels so happy when she sees me now, because for those that were in that circle and saw me at the beginning, I am like a different person. I look at that person and I don't ever want to be her again, because that's what I find difficult. That's what I find painful. When I come out of myself and I look at this person that was so broken, and it's difficult to look back and not recall the emotions that is, because I can't say was fully associated with that person. It's very, very painful. So I think it's just owning who I am more. And being, it's made me more resilient, most certainly. It really has.
Amazing. Thank you. That is such a brilliant question, Rose. Thank you. Dilys, it has been amazing. You know me, I could talk to you all day. I'm sure you've got some lovely things to do. And I don't want your dog to get any more jealous. So please, here is the book, Not This Widow. It's available on Amazon, Waterstones, all good retailers. You can connect with Dilys, as she said, on Facebook, all over Twitter, Instagram, under her own name. So lovely to have you join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danni. Bye. Bye, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.